I'm going to share with you the do's and don'ts of academic writing. So if you want to improve your writing or your grades, then this video is for you. The key to great academic writing is to be clear and concise, which means we're short and we don't waste a lot of words. So the first thing to do is to use abbreviations or acronyms. The key to using abbreviations is to write whatever you're abbreviating in full the first time you use it in your assessment or paper. Then in brackets after that, put down the abbreviation. After that, you can use that abbreviation throughout your entire work, but don't use the full version again. Once you abbreviate it, use that abbreviation. Now we might use abbreviations, but we don't use contractions. And don't worry, I'm not going to go down some grammar rabbit hole. Contractions are just joined words. So for example, instead of saying it is, a contraction is its, or there is theirs. In academic writing, we do not use contractions. We use the individual words themselves. And this doesn't just apply for academic writing. This is valid for professional writing as well. It's important to get comfortable writing in this way because it's not just how we write in university, it's how you write in the workplace. So when it comes time to writing emails and reports for work, you need to be able to write in this way and not use contractions. We use them in everyday speak, but not in our writing. Do change your sentence structure though. Sentences can be complex or simple. For example, you could have a statement sentence where you say, I went for a run today, versus a more detailed sentence, I ran 10 kilometers along a path by a river. So the two very different types of sentences. One is also shorter and one is longer. I've made a separate video that goes into more detail on sentence structure, so I'll pop the link in the description below, just underneath that like and subscribe button. In academic writing, we try to vary our sentence structure. This makes it much easier for our reader to stay engaged with our writing. You can alternate between long and short sentences. Just make sure that they're not too long. Never longer than 50 words, and ideally probably less than 25. And mix it up between having statement sentences, some that provide detail or comparisons, or are more descriptive. But you want to change them up. If you have the same type of sentence over and over again, so a series of statements with no actual detail attached, it's very hard for anybody to engage with your writing, and it makes it really hard to mark as a lecturer. And with that, you want to have that varying sentence length. So some long and some short. You can even have really short sentences from 4 to 6 words. They can be really punchy and really stand out and make a big impact on your reader. But whatever you do, don't overuse the same transition word. These are words that we put at the beginning of a sentence to connect to the last one. So for example, although or however. As humans, we tend to like 1 or 2 specific words and then we overuse them. We use them a lot and we don't notice it, but a person reading or marking our work will. It really stands out and it actually becomes quite irritating for the reader, and it can actually agitate them, and that's the last thing you want when somebody is reading your work. So just change them up. If you need to, you can use a thesaurus to find another option, or if you're in a Word document, you can simply select the word, right click, and look at the synonym options. Sometimes you don't even need that transition word, believe it or not. Read the sentence without it and see if you actually need it. Now, make sure that you do use the active voice in academic writing, and this goes for professional writing too. For example, if we're writing a report in active voice, we would say, in this study we surveyed XYZ. Whereas if we're using passive voice, we would say, a survey of XYZ was conducted. So we can see in that first example, the focus is on the doer. We surveyed, us, we. Whereas in the second example, the focus is on the process. A survey was conducted. It's important for us to use active voice because it makes our sentences clear and concise with as few words as possible. Whereas passive voice begins to get wordy, and it's a really roundabout way of getting our message across to people. So once we get rid of that passive voice, we also get rid of those long sentences, which is a definite don't in academic writing. We don't want long sentences. And that's because long sentences begin to get confusing. Our main point gets lost in them. And if you think about it, the whole point of academic writing is to get our point across to somebody. That's it. It's about communication. Long sentences are confusing because our main point gets lost in a sea of detail or fluff words and filler content. There are 2 main types of long sentences that you want to get rid of. So number 1 is where we've added a lot of fluff words or filler content that just doesn't need to be there. The easiest way to fix this is to read through your sentence, and if there are words that you can remove and your sentence still makes sense, then just remove them. The other type of long sentence is where we've added in too much detail. The best thing to do here is to break up that long sentence into 2 or more sentences instead of deleting words. Wherever you've put your comma is a great place to choose to break up your sentence, because it means you've already noticed in your own mind that there should be a break there. You're just increasing that break by putting in a full stop instead. One of the most important parts of academic writing, though, is to reference. We can't just say whatever we want. We have to back that up. We have to provide a reference. Now, that reference can be to any type of material. We do use peer-reviewed sources, so journal articles. But it's also perfectly acceptable to reference books, conferences, videos, and even ChatGPT. The important part here is that we're recognizing that we didn't come up with the information ourselves. Somebody else already had, so we're giving them that recognition. Just the same way we do on social media when we tag somebody if we use or share their content. There is one exception to this, and that is if you're writing something that is universally accepted. For example, the sun rises in the east. You don't need to reference that, because for you to find the reference of the very first person that said that would be impossible. Was it Plato? Was it Socrates? It's impossible to know, but it's universally accepted. So in those instances, you don't need to provide a reference. You'll probably notice this a lot when you read journal articles. Oftentimes, the very first sentence or two in the introduction doesn't actually have a reference, even though they're stating something that they didn't come up with. And that's why. It's because it's usually such a big statement and it's something that's accepted by the community. Now, I've saved the simplest one to fix till last. Don't use complicated words. It's really easy in academic writing to get caught up using complicated words. I did this myself when I was in first year. I suddenly started using words like furthermore and moreover because I read them in journal articles and I thought that was how you were supposed to write. It's not. You want to use the simplest words possible. Just because you read complicated versions of words in published articles and books doesn't mean that you should do it. And in fact, the best writing is the simplest. As Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain something simply enough, then it means you don't understand it. Believe it or not, it's actually much harder to explain something using simple words than it is to use complicated words or long sentences. If you can explain something using short sentences and simple words, you will achieve better marks. Always use the simplest words possible.